All righty, welcome back to 500 Doors, your real estate podcast. I'm Kim Hayden, your host, and I am super excited today because we are going to be learning so much the art of negotiation. It's not called art for no reason at all. It is truly something we have to learn and practice and over again. And you know what? Our guest today is going to shed some light and when we're done, you're going to go and you're going to watch all of his videos because I'll tell you, I was thoroughly entertained. All right, so let's get down to this. Eirik and Davey, and I'm going to hopefully say this, Gislason. I hope I have that right. Eirik Davey-Gislason is a master's certified negotiation expert, instructor for the Real Estate Negotiation Institute, and founder of Archway Partners Coaching. He is a practicing associate real estate broker at Brown Harris Stevenson and 16 years of experience in residential real estate as an agent, manager, trainer, and director of sales. Eirik is a well-known speaker, panelist, podcast guest, and contributor on the subject of collaborative negotiation, value proposition, and persuasion. And he's also the author of blogs, the Unreal Estate. I love that. Unreal Estate and Growing the Pie. And Eirik is also originally from Minnesota, and we just chatted about that. So it's interesting times, Minnesota to New York City, with his wife and two daughters. So let's bring him into studio here.
Hi,
Good morning,
Kim.
Eirik. Did I say the last name right?
You got it.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
I'm always
You're one of the few.
excited. Always excited when I say the last name right. Last names are so important. They're a
Thank
part
you.
of our history and our identity. So, what I'd love to do is I'd like to start out because I want to remind everybody that real estate is not easy. It is a career opportunity that is hard won, but is definitely can be won. And what I'd love to do is start off with, the fact that, you were born into multi-million dollars of real estate and a mogul to start with, right? From birth. No,
No,
no.
no,
Okay.
no.
So no, let's go through who you are. Give us a little bit of taste of who is Eirik.
Well, as you mentioned, I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in a small rural community called New Ulm. I went to St. Olaf College in Minnesota, which is mostly known for their choir and Betty White from Golden Girls. But it's a small liberal arts college. I was an economics and theater major, actually. As my dad said, if I didn't get the part, I could rip the tickets. That was his joke about my double major. I did spend some time in New York as an actor, and as you can see, as we're here today, it didn't work out for me. I transitioned into real estate. It turned out to be a phenomenal career for me. And then I went into management in real estate. Became a director of sales. I was a trainer. I trained all of our agents in sales training, rental training, and then as you mentioned, I have two daughters. When my second daughter was about to be born, I said, I can't do the 80-hour-a-week thing and not be involved in their lives. So I made the decision to leap, go back into the field as an agent. Best decision I ever made. And I've been with Brown Harris Stevens for the last 7 years back in the field. And pretty much immediately in that journey back into real estate as an agent, I was introduced to the Real Estate Negotiation Institute. And because I had a lot of negotiation training in my background, I started teaching for them, and it started me on this journey, this passion project that I have now, where I teach collaborative negotiation training for real estate professionals across the United States. I've been doing it now for about 7 years, and it's a phenomenal education, not only for real estate professionals, but for life. And I enjoy doing it.
Well, and I'm okay. I'm gonna sound like totally lost here. I didn't even realize there was a school for real estate negotiations. This is fascinating because negotiations, I was very fortunate. I had my husband on my team, and my husband came from the corporate world, and he had dealt in some really big numbers.
Yep.
So negotiating something that was $200,000 or 300 or 500,000 didn't really off-put him. Whereas I came from Wichita, Kansas, where $100,000 could buy you half the block. So, that being said, I mean, I know that if I had not had my husband, I do think I would have stumbled because he was the closer. We were like the Tin
Yeah.
Men, right? You remember the movie The Tin Men? You had your opener and your closer,
Mhm.
and I was the and I think it's very rare to find somebody who can both open and close. So let's walk through this a little bit. By the way, everybody, I want you to go and check out really great video on the martingale theory. Is that
Yep.
correct? Did I say
Yep.
that
The
correctly?
martingale. Yeah.
Martingale theory that was developed, like it's from 150 years ago. So quite frankly, if you're still doing something, I don't know. But it's all about doubling down
Yeah.
and and that was very real in the sense that we as agents tend to get locked into the dialogue
Hmm.
and we double down and double down. And there's a lot of agents running around going, I guarantee you'll get this,
Yeah.
because they have a false confidence from a market, and maybe they're newer. So the average real estate agent 7 years licensed in North America. So if they're newer agents, they haven't been through all the ups and downs, and they're running around handing out guarantees, and they'll have no way to backpedal. So let's go through a little bit about what you do as a negotiation
Hmm.
expert. And I'm going to ask you for three things every agent can implement within their language today, because we know this is all about
Hmm.
language, to start on a path of better negotiations. So tell us everything. I'm going to actually bring you full screen. This is important, folks, because it's one thing to get the listing and one thing to get the buyer ready to buy, but you can still blow it. So it's all yours, Eirik. I'm
So I'll
excited.
tell you, I'll give you three things. There are so many things, but I'll give you three that I think are so incredibly important for negotiators that are often missed by real estate professionals. The first one is setting expectations. So Stephen M. R. Covey says that 90% of chaos is a breakdown of expectations, and that is so incredibly true in our negotiations. We don't set proper expectations for our clients. You mentioned, Kim, this idea of handing out guarantees, and oftentimes the handing out of guarantees is your lack of knowledge and preparation coming forward. And you think all you can do is say yes, because if I don't say yes, I'm not going to get the listing, I'm not going to get the buyer, I'm not going to get the deal. So you don't set proper expectations and you allow things to just play out and get chaotic. So that goes to the second one, which is this idea of strategizing. And I mentioned that having a proper plan or strategizing, not just saying yes and yes and yes. When you have a proper plan and you strategize your negotiations, you are far more powerful. The Wharton School of Negotiation says that planning and goal setting is your primary source of power. So the more you have set goals with your client, minimums, maximums, and goals, and you can adhere to those goals, the stronger you're going to negotiate from a position of strength rather than waffling back and forth. Now you can reframe those goals, you can revisit those goals, but you have to be very intentional about it. So negotiating from a position of strength because you strategize, because you organize, knowing exactly who your buyer or your seller is, so that you can understand what's important to them, what they want, what they need. All of those things help you organize and strategize around your negotiation. And then the third point I'll make is one that I think probably tops them all, and that is what I call being ceaselessly curious. And we as real estate professionals, we as adults, abandon this childhood negotiator that we had inside of us, this 5-year-old, 7-year-old child, the best negotiator there is, in my opinion, because we become afraid to ask questions. We think it's too intrusive. We think that we're doing something that might be offensive to the other side. So if we want to become more skilled as a negotiator, we have to understand that there's not just one way to ask a question, that you don't have to give the other side a pass or an out by asking only closed-ended questions, yes or no questions, which is what we do sometimes as negotiators. We give people an out by saying, is your client going to freak out if we offer $600,000? Rather than, how will your client react if, or what would your client say to? So these how and what questions are good for us. So those three things, I would say, being ceaselessly curious, strategizing and organizing around your negotiations, and setting expectations with your client and with the other side.
The ceaselessly curious. I love that. I found in my career as a real estate agent, a lot of the agents who were, 10 years my senior were very jaded.
Mhm.
And even to that last listing, I always wanted to put myself in my client's shoes, because if I could see the procedure from my client's perspective,
Yes.
I could help alleviate their worries. Because Bob Berg is anybody who has not read The Go Giver, and I know I have said this a gazillion times, please go read The Go Giver. It's such a great book because it shows you the internal dialogue from both sides of the perspective, and not a lot gets you thinking. It's like, okay, if I'm thinking this and they're thinking that, you know, then we can come to this middle ground. Most times we're sitting in our own tunnel.
Right.
Oh, I've done this, 40 times before, and this is the way it's supposed to go. I find that also not asking the right questions also, and what goes up does come down, folks. The market will soften, and you will have to work harder. And these are just the facts. Right now, the buyers agents are working like crazy just to secure a listing for their clients. But when the market softens, the listing agents will start working harder, because we've got to make sure those homes are ready for the market. And we are in a society of deal or reveal. Thank you, HGTV. There's no such thing as just putting mom's avocado green appliances on, MLS, hoping they sell, right? And that's, again, ensuring that your clients are best prepared. So when we talk about negotiations, and we talk around real estate, why do you think? So I've got a couple different questions here, and we're going to we're going to tackle one that's maybe not the most loved conversation, but it's a real
Okay.
conversation. Let's first start in. I would like to go down the rabbit hole a little bit more about what you do and how, when somebody engages with you, let's build an avatar for you. The avatar is a statistical average. National Association says that the average residential real estate agent is 54-year-old female,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
she has now gotten her licensed real estate agent. She's now a residential licensed real estate agent. She's come out of corporate America. What are some of the strategies, or what would be your approach at the institute, or coaching her to move her from that corporate mindset to the entrepreneur mindset of how to be ceaselessly curious, how to set the expectations, and how to know the strategies that need to be in place?
Well, you mentioned earlier this idea that your husband, who was kind of the closer, he had this ability coming from the corporate world, dealing with large dollar transactions, where he actually had some expertise in negotiation. And that Tom Heyman, the founder and CEO of the Real Estate Negotiation Institute, that's exactly why he created a school for real estate negotiation. He came out of Procter and Gamble, 30 years negotiating deals internationally with Procter and Gamble, and then had a second career as a real estate professional, and realized there is no training for negotiation for real estate agents. There's no pre-licensing training. There's very little ongoing training, because a lot of agents shoot from the hip and don't have training themselves. So when sales directors and trainers are training new agents, they leave negotiation out because they don't have a specialty or an expertise in that field. So, to your point, that's kind of Tom brought his corporate experience into the real estate world. And what I tell people, there's a part of our core concepts class that deals with value proposition, and value proposition is incredibly important. And that's different from a pitch. Your elevator pitch is something that's describing your product or your services, that is getting people engaged in using your product and services, whereas a value proposition has to connect to the person that you are delivering that value proposition to. So whoever is your buyer in that moment, whether you are pitching for an exclusive or whether you are pitching a series of buyers who are coming into your listing, you want to connect the value proposition, the benefits that whatever you're selling offers, to that specific person. So when someone's new to the real estate field, especially if they come from a corporate background, one of the things that I sit down and talk to them about as a coach is, how do we take the strengths that you've developed over the course of several years as a corporate professional, or whatever you're coming from. I came from waiting tables and acting background, bartending. All of those things were very, very relevant to the career that I was stepping into. But how do we take what you've done and use that so that you can build the highest possible value proposition as a new agent in the field? It may also be creating that contrast. You mentioned, Kim, the idea that you've got some of these agents who have been in the business for 15, 20, 25 years. They're jaded. They think they know every circumstance. They think they know every scenario. And they walk into every different scenario with each and every client. And they say, nah, I know what's going on here. I know how this goes. Let me tell you how this is going to end. And you, as a new agent,
Yep.
can take your newness and use it to your advantage by saying, look, I explore, I ask questions, I understand who the other side is, what the other side needs, because every situation is different. The Sherpa does not head up the mountain on a climb to Mount Everest and just kind of put on their blinders and say, I've done this a million times. This is just an easy walk up a mountain. Every single situation is different and every climb is different. So taking those things that you've done and creating a contrast between you and agents who have been in the field for a long time is important. And then I would also say, another thing that you can do is just keep learning. Just keep learning. This idea of, we hear this fake it till you make it idea. Well, there is an element of that as real estate professionals, but you don't have to rely on that. And a lot of people use that as a crutch. They'll say, okay, the fake it till you make it is me. I don't have to learn anything. I can just kind of say what I want and eventually I'll learn it. Well, how about learn it? How about role play?
Yep.
Use the opportunities you have to become better immediately.
The script, and there is a
Yeah.
script, and I'm not saying you have to repeat somebody else's script. I have a script for when I go in. There's a reason why 70% of our business was listings.
Mhm.
It's because I had a
Yeah.
script. I set the expectations. I opened the dialogue around staging. Like, I haven't sold a property that wasn't staged since 2006.
Wow. That's
And
fantastic.
I went and got my staging certificate, not so I could move the furniture around, but so I'd understand the science behind the staging. Why, your pictures need to be hung at 62 inches. Why you have to have a 34-inch space for people to navigate. Why all these things. Why, and that's that ceaselessly curious. What I find fascinating, okay, I want to bring this back to the numbers game, and then I'm going to ask you a real hard question that makes all of us squirm a
Okay.
little. But the numbers game, one of the things that you talked about in your video when you and Jake are hopping the bus and chugging your free Coca-Cola and going to the $2 blackjack table, and everybody has to watch the video because you really do set the visual stage.
Thank you.
You're very good at that. But you talk a little bit about the whole numbers game, and that we talk about numbers, and I'm seeing that more and more and more, where agents are completely reliant on this, and they're unable to navigate, and they know that they make 100 calls, they're going to get 2 solid leads. And it's like, but why would you? I don't know. I'm never, I don't call me, text me first, and then I'll let you know if you're going to call me. That's the society we're in. So why are you door knocking and interrupting people's dinner? Why are you cold calling people, and intruding in their space when we have all of these, things? I mean, I don't have an issue with SMS. I don't have an issue with any of these things because they give me an opportunity to prepare. So let's talk about a lot of this whole new, numbers. Just call the numbers. Just call the numbers. All this lead generation that Zillow's been made uber wealthy on, and yet I know so many agents who are pouring out $4 to $6 to $10,000 a month on lead gen, when the reality is they could actually put that into the human being and make way more money back.
Yeah.
So let's talk numbers.
Yeah.
Doing the numbers.
So to that point, so, when I first started in the business in New York City, it was all about Craigslist. And I don't know if this was every other market, but you would go into the market and you started off as a rental agent in New York City. And you would have firms that just said, okay, here's your account, here's your desk. My suggestion is that you post 20 Craigslist ads a day, which was at the time, I think it was like $10 an ad. So you had people sinking. I mean, their first day in real estate, they don't know anything. And now they think somehow the pressure is that if they just play that numbers game, if they just put 20 ads in, they'll get 2 people to call them. Well, the thing is, they have no idea what to say, even if they did get those 2 people to call them. Yep. Right. So this idea that you can just knock on someone's door, and if they answer the door, now it's go time. Well, what do you say when it's go time? And if you're not the kind of person who has that kind of mentality or has that skill, you're going to do more damage to your career than you're going to do helping your career. So I think, as a coach, everybody is different. And I think that too often real estate coaches, they basically say, this is not the way that the coach approach is, not to say, do it my way. If you just follow my lead, you're going to be successful. The coach approach is to understand who your client is, who your coachee is, and what they want. What is it that you want to achieve? What does success mean for you? And now let's build a bridge to get you there.
And as a good coach should also be very clear on what they are teaching and how they're teaching it. And if it doesn't align with you, that's okay.
Yeah.
I heard one of the best, Erica. I either forget the first name or last name. She gold medal wrestling, Rio Olympics. I interviewed her.
Oh, wow.
And she had a really great comment. I asked her, what are some of the things that you would attribute to your success? And she goes through community and, training and all these other things. But then she also says, coach. Now, just remember, the coach you start with is not always the coach you end with. It's not always the coach you go to the Olympics with, but you will go to the Olympics with a coach, because without a coach, you will not go to the Olympics. And it was a really profound statement, because I know where I sit within the coaching realm, right? I'm like that. I'm the baby. I take the new and struggling and people who are trying to break it down, and they're trying to be very cost effective, but are able to start those conversations, right? These are people that just need to know, they need the icebreakers. I create the icebreakers. I show them where to go and how to do those icebreakers. The negotiation is not my strong suit. It's not where I would step in and say, but the reality is almost every real estate agent I have seen that is really successful has continual coaching.
Yeah.
All throughout they have a mentorship, a coaching, they have something. They're not sitting in a silo listening how great they are. They're they have somebody there to challenge them. So my question for you, and this is going to be I'm going to get just creamed for this one.
Am I going to get creamed too then?
Yeah, we could, right. Because we could also maybe come up with a solution.
All right.
When we look at the National Association of Realtor Statistics, and we start cross-referencing that with, Inman and all these other spaces. And by the way, if you're a new real estate agent, you do need to be looking at the Canadian Real Estate Association, National Association of Realtors, Inman. There are so many places that you need to be getting your information from daily, because this is your career. If you choose to be here, be informed. But what I find fascinating is we have 67% of licensed residential real estate agents are female with an average age of 54. Yet, those are not the women who are really cranking out the revenue, right? We still see male-led teams.
Mm-hmm.
And also in coaching, we still see nearly 70% of the high revenue coaches are male.
Wow.
What do you think? Yeah. Google this: top paid real estate coaches USA. And I don't know why Tony Robbins is on there, but he's the number one. But out of that, there's only 3 women. So it's a really fascinating dichotomy. So that would be my question. What do you think I know you're not a woman,
Mm-hmm.
but you are in the negotiating world. You have taught women. What are some of the challenges you think that that are contributing to this discrepancy in revenue creation?
Wow. That statistic is shocking. And I if I could tackle the coaching one, having just heard that statistic, one is I think that a lot of these coaches, instead of telling people what they need to hear, they tell people what they want to hear. And I'm not sure if that's something that has any sort of a gender skew to it, where the male coaches are more likely to tell people what they want to hear as opposed to what they need to hear. But I think that is a problem in our coaching world in negotiation, or in real estate, is that there's a big sales pitch going on. It is, I can get you here if you just pay me X amount of dollars a month.
And that actually triggers the whole, when they did studies of male and female putting in job resumes for jobs, men would go after a job where they were only 60% qualified for, but their resume would look like they're 95% qualified. Whereas women who were 95% qualified would actually minimize. That actually makes sense.
Which doesn't make the male coach any better. In fact, probably the opposite. No. But it certainly sounds good on a YouTube video or an advertisement, right? Or an Instagram reel.
And that has been my greatest challenge is saying when you look at all of my materials, I don't typically talk about the 500 million in real estate transactions that I've negotiated. Yeah. And yet that's what people want. And because I come at things I'm a mom. I come at things where I really do care. I want to see you succeed, but my definition of success is not the TV's definition or the Selling Sunset or these things. I'm more I'm more like the Minnesota mom. My definition of success is that you're going to have a great home for your family, that you're going to create common ground within community. You're going to become kind of that community hub that people know that they can know, like, and trust you. And then that leads to becoming the go-to person to trust for your real estate.
Well,
right. So
you just brought something up with me in that regard, because I think that if you're coaching people to become better community members, to become better real estate agents, to become better at every facet of their life so they can live a happy life, right? Well, if that person that you're coaching, if what they're conveying to a client is something that's aspirational, this is the problem with negotiation, is that oftentimes competitive negotiators win out because they go to the people they're negotiating for and against, and they use these bullying, hard bargaining tactics, which may sound really good. When you go to
Yeah.
your seller and you go, I'm going to take no prisoners, we're going to get this done, I'm going to get you top dollar, and all you're talking about is how you're going to force the other side to bend to your will, that may sound like a reasonable appeal to a client. If there's no contrast to that style. As a collaborative negotiator, now what I train agents to do is go in and compete against that competitive negotiator who is making all of these promises and using these hard bargaining tactics, and run circles around them by showing your work, by explaining to your client how exactly you're going to take them through this transaction so that they can maximize the gain for their side. And as a collaborative negotiator, how we can adequately satisfy the other side. So I can make the argument to my client and say, look, there is a benefit to you to not rubbing the other side's nose in the dirt, or not,
Yes.
making them a loser in this transaction. I can get you more this is why my other blog is called Growing the Pie. We can actually create value in this transaction and get you more because I'm skilled at what I do. But oftentimes the two conversations that are happening is one that's aspirational and one that's, kick butt and take names. And what's missing in the middle is I can get you what you need. I can get you the best possible deal and also make friends and also make this a smooth and fun experience for you. I can get you more and make you happy, as opposed to just like a bull in a china shop running around knocking people over and grabbing whatever I can.
And I've seen like team leads, mega team leads, that very much are in that whole smash and grab. And they do go through a lot of agents.
Oh, yeah.
They get these new agents. They just go through a lot of agents. I absolutely 110% subscribe to that collaborative negotiations. But that starts from the very beginning. That starts from being ceaselessly curious as to who your client is and why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you know that information. So then when you do go into the negotiation space, you have that information to pull on.
Absolutely.
Right. Again, this goes back to, well, I've already done, 55 transactions and it's just another house. Well, it's not to your client.
Right.
It's not to your client. This is, you're depending on this person to, contribute to your standard of life.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to contribute to theirs?
I love that.
And you have to know,
so true.
So yeah, it is interesting. And I do think that our media has really, in many ways, negatively impacted real estate, in the sense that, you know what, we're not superstars. I mean, we can be super agents, and we can be super neighbors, and we can be super advocates. But at the end of the day, you don't deserve anything more than the person you're standing next to. It's these are realities. There's a lot of, the number one common personality trait amongst agents that I think it was NAR did this like a decade ago. Narcissism. Narcissism was the number one. But part of that comes into being able to walk into a home, somebody else's space. You're going on their home turf, and you're having to pitch an entire game, and they may not be 100% happy. We've all gone through ups and downs.
Yeah.
Right? If you've been in the business a decade or two and you have not gone through a down, I'd like to know where you live, because I'm moving. Right? But Calgary has gone through, I've been through 2 booms and busts in Calgary, because we're oil based. So we're a boom and bust town. So, knowing what you're walking into and asking lots of questions, but having a strategy, a game plan. So tell me, why do you do this? Because um, I know that good coaches really do care.
Yeah.
They really want to see success. And yet, statistically, we know that 87% of real estate agents will fail
Yeah.
because it's a hard business. And um, that the average real estate agent's only cranking in 35 hours a week and less than $57,000 a year. And I don't know how anybody lives on that, especially if half that money is going out to the regulatory bodies
Right.
and boards and such. So why do you do this?
Um, I just like you, and we talked about this a little before we came on. I love I love seeing others succeed. It's one of the things that I loved as a sales director. I love watching not only people achieve, but achieve in the right way. And I was with a firm when I first came into real estate in New York City that luckily was one of the few, is a little oasis in New York City of firms that believed in honesty and integrity. And that was really important to me. And the fact that I could become a successful real estate agent in New York City and still hold on to my moral compass and to my integrity meant a lot to me. So I am a big champion of this idea that you can do business the right way. You can achieve by being integrous and having a moral compass. That is possible. And I'm here to help you do it. The other thing is, the other reason I do it, and one of the reasons I teach negotiation is, frankly, I don't like bullies. I don't like bullies. I think that there's a reason why competitive negotiators do well, and there's a reason why they exist, because it works. And it works because we allow it to work. That's why it works. The moment that we can understand that competitive tactics are just that, they are just tactics, they are short bursts meant to push you back. And the moment that you decide, I'm not going to be intimidated, you call out the tactic, you shut down that behavior, you gain power. And so I am really adamant about taking competitive negotiators and telling them there's a better way for you to do this. You may not know that you're behaving like a competitive negotiator. It's just what you know. But there's a way for you to get more for your client. But even more than that, those collaborative negotiators out there, or those compliant negotiators, those people pleasers who are too busy giving away value, and just trying to get a deal done, and they're not upholding their fiduciary responsibility to their client. Taking those collaborative negotiators who just need help and those compliant negotiators who need a lot of help, and saying, you can negotiate with a competitive negotiator. You can run circles around these bullies just by knowing what they're doing and understanding how to defend it. And to me, that's a part of the course that I love teaching, is understanding competitive tactics and how to, as Harvard calls it, name it to tame it, which is a great phrase.
Name it to tame it. And don't let FOMO grab you, because if you're doing the job right,
Yeah.
there will be other opportunities. My favorite image, we had an agent here in Calgary that was known for bully offers, ran a bully business, and brought an offer to us, and it was a low ball. And we know, like, there's one thing, like, we could come in and we would always be, historically, over 1,500 houses within just like this little area. Um, we would always be within 2-3% of where that house would finally land within the market, if any variance. And he brings us an offer at 7% or 8% off the market. And we just drove the offer back over. This is back, folks, when we just couldn't email. But we drove it back over and handed it to this gentleman, and I use that term loosely. And he comes running down, chasing us out of his driveway. And he goes, you can't do that. You have to counter. And it's like, no, it's in our rights not to even entertain this offer because it's not worth
Mhm.
entertaining. So it's knowing what you've brought to the table as a real estate agent to represent your client, knowing that you've prepared your client to the best of your ability to be strong within the market. What is their position? What is their price? And how are they being presented? So knowing these things, and then you don't have to deal with the bullies.
Yep. No, you're right. You're right. And you can call them out using data. I mean, competitive negotiators specifically love to use data. They love to manipulate data if they can. So
Mhm.
understanding data and being able to use sound logic to challenge them is an important skill for a collaborative negotiator. You don't have to just accept the fact that they're telling you 7% off the ask is a fair price. Well, challenge them on
Yeah.
that. How can they
And
demonstrate that that's a fair price?
exactly. And know, like, be in there, know what's going on in your market. You're not a bystander. You are the
Yeah,
person that's helping to create the statistics and the averages and the variables that you need to be part of that.
yep,
If you want to get paid from it, be part of it. It's really straightforward.
exactly.
We
Yep.
always knew what was going on in our market. Um, so let's real quickly, what does community mean to you? If I say the word community, what is your definition of community?
My definition of community is not only my family, not only my immediate family, my community, which is really, as we were talking about early on before we got on, is really important to me, and one of the reasons I left being the world of sales direction. But I believe that we have a responsibility to the area in which we work and the area in which we live. And we as real estate agents have um, a unique community in that we don't just drive to an office and sit in a building and then come home to our to the community in which we live. We are doing business and oftentimes doing several transactions in neighborhoods that are not our own, and that has to be a part of our community as well. So when we have the good fortune, as you mentioned, to be able to be brought into people's homes and to help them build their new life, and to have that exit strategy when they're leaving that house, we are having an effect on that community constantly. So I think that we owe it to our clients, we owe it to our careers, to be invested in those communities in which we are working, not only our own. Um, but for me, I live in Jackson Heights, Queens, and early on when we moved to Jackson Heights, it's one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the entire world. About 170 languages are spoken in the several blocks around my house. It's an unbelievable neighborhood. I love raising my children here, but I also knew when we moved to this community that I wanted to be involved, and and to help my community, more than just be someone who spent money in the community, because that's oftentimes with the right way real estate agents will be a part of the community, is that they say that I'm spending money here, I'm doing business here, but we need to invest our sweat equity, our
Mhm.
personal, physical time, to helping our community be the best that it possibly can be, and those communities that we're selling and helping sellers and buyers invest in as well.
You know what? You're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. What is one book you think every real estate agent should read?
I think that there's a book called Think Again by Adam Grant that I'm reading right now, that I just finished reading. It's an amazing book. It talks about how we as human beings need to not need to frame how we think and how we analyze situations with a kind of a social scientist brain, and to really think about the outcomes as we're doing it, as opposed to just kind of going with gut. um, that's a great book. I think if you're a fan of negotiations, there are a few books that I think are seminal works on negotiation that I would highly recommend. One is Getting to Yes. If you haven't read Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury from the Harvard program, that is like they are like uh, the It's like one of the seminal works on negotiation. They're like the grandfathers of collaborative negotiation in a way. Getting to Yes with Yourself is kind of a book that was written after Getting to Yes, but it's kind of a prequel in my opinion. And then there's a book called Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini, which was written in the 80s, but it's all about how we as human beings use our primal brain to make decisions on how to influence and when to be influenced. And we bring in things like the exchange principle or the reciprocity principle, as he talks about it, the contrast principle. And one of the examples he uses is a Boy Scout comes to his door and says, would you like to buy a $100 raffle ticket to win a car? And he says, well, I don't need a car. I have a car. It's a lot of money. So thank you very much. Good luck to you, son. And the Boy Scout says, well, how about $5 $1 candy bars? And he went, oh, yeah, of course. So he buys five $1 candy bars, closes the door and says, what just happened? I didn't go to the door wanting to buy 5 candy bars. I had no intention of buying candy bars. But in contrast to the $100 raffle ticket, it seemed like a great deal. So all of these things that all of these principles, these contrast or these persuasion principles that come from our primal brain is the study of influence. And that's what he talks about. So there are several books, but those are a few.
The witch close is so underutilized in raising children and navigating real estate. Which would you prefer?
Yes.
And it really is, you're guiding them where I witch closed my kids to death. My kids will always go, witch close?
I love that.
My kids are 33 to 21 but they still show up for Christmas dinner. They still show up for Thanksgiving dinner, and they still show up at my house whenever they need somebody, because I never stripped their options away. I gave them the options that were appropriate within that situation. And they learned decision making. They felt like they had, and this is the big one, folks, they felt that they were participating within the decision and the direction. And that's where you get that gameplay attitude with your clients, is when they feel that they are being included versus being told. So I do love that, witch clothes and so forth and so on, and bringing your clients along the journey with you, giving them that education and that opportunity.
100%. The idea of having options as a client or in a negotiation, when you're representative, as we as negotiators on behalf of our client, when we sit down with them and we give them no options, we say, this is how you're going to do it, or this is what's going to happen. That creates a defensive posture. People tend to retreat or recess into their corner. Whereas if they have options, especially if they have 2 or have 3 or 4 options, they feel like there's not just a binary choice, that they have choices to choose from, and that they are in control, that they're empowered to make a decision. And that's huge as a negotiator when dealing with your client.
Where can people find you?
Well, I am where I do a lot of my videos, as you mentioned. I'm Eirik the Expert at Eirik the Expert on Instagram and YouTube. You can check out all of my reels on Instagram, and my videos live as well on my YouTube channel. I have 2 blogs, as you mentioned, both of which are at my name, EirikGislason.com. That's my non-married name, Eirik Gilson. Professionally, I'm Eirik Gislason. But my married name is Eirik Davey-Gislason. So EirikGislason.com is where both of my blogs live. You can check me out on LinkedIn. I have a phenomenal real estate newsletter that I put out every 2 weeks. And those are the main places to find me.
Excellent. We have 96 hours a week we can be productive. And if you pull back, where I have 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day that's going to be engaging hours with my children or my family, what's the rest of the time? Where are you spending the rest of your time? Spend it learning something. We're in an opportunity where you can either be a junkie on Candy Crush or you can be a learning junkie.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to be? Which one are you going to be? We are in the age of knowledge, folks. We are in the age of knowledge, and everything is an equal opportunity, unlike any time before in history. It is, you change the course of not only your path, but also if you choose leadership, you change the course of other people's paths. And that's the blessing we have within real estate. Eirik, take us out with a quote. What is a quote that inspires you?
Mm. There's one that actually I just recently I was doing a new video. This is going to be my next video that I put out, and this goes back to not only the work that Yuri and Fisher do, but it goes all the way back to Sun Tzu from The Art of War. And he says in that book, and reused in negotiation texts over and over, and it's build your opponent a golden bridge to retreat across. And it's that idea of saving face. It's that idea of you can surround them on three sides, but if you give them a narrow path to move out, to move to something that's a deal, something that is a better position for them, they're going to take it. And they're going to be less likely to dig in and, as Sun Tzu would say, fight to the death, which is what happens when we're backed into a corner. So as negotiators, we oftentimes want to take that opportunity to surround people and make them do something. Give them that golden bridge, allow them that small path to retreat to a position that you want them to retreat to, and you will get far more out of your deals.
I love that. I love that. And it's also treating all parties with dignity and giving option.
Yeah.
This is a big one, folks. Treat people like you would want to be treated. It's really straightforward. There's no anything beyond that golden rule of treating others as you would want to be treated. And if you run your business that way, you can actually make the changes in society that need to be made on a community level. So, you know what, Eirik, I can't thank you enough for your time and sharing your wisdom. And I look forward to learning even more from you and watching all your videos. Everybody, do go listen, because the story of just sitting there, and now I'm going to pique your curiosity, and the woman he was sitting next to, and the $100, and this double down. It's such a beautifully well said story. It's worth just listening, even if you don't care about negotiations. Do go and listen. I can see where that theater comes in. Wow, totally crushed it. Totally crushed it. So, you know what? I want to thank you for taking time, investing in yourself, expanding your knowledge base, taking a listen to a different perspective. Because whether you're starting, struggling, or scaling, you have a right as a real estate agent to step into who you are, provide for your family, and create legacies, not only for yourself, but for those that you serve. Because remember, we're here to serve. Again, my name's Kim Hayden. Do join us at our Facebook group. You can find us 500 Doors, and this is a marketing and community page. So join us over there. Until next time, try out that witch clothes. Give it a little shot, be senselessly curious, know what your strategies are, and, set the expectations. Until next time.